Hey, it's Sammy for another episode of the I Do Music podcast, and our goal and our mission is to empower and educate musicians and artists worldwide. And on today's episode, we sat down with Patchwork Recording Studios studio manager Toya Elise discussing her love for the music business, how she landed her internship here at Patchwork, and how she balances her work and her personal life. Hey, it's Sammy for another episode of the I Do Music podcast, and I'm sitting down with friend and studio manager extraordinaire, Toya Brown. How are you?
Good. Hey, Sammy.
I can't believe I got you on this podcast.
I can't believe it either.
Those that know Toya knows this is not necessarily her alley. She would not be up here if we didn't beg her. So thank you so much for sitting down with me.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so Toya.
Yeah.
You're from D.C.?
No, I'm from Jersey.
Jersey,
yeah.
Lived in D.C.?
My family's DMV. I went to school there.
School in DMV. Okay, my fault. So from Jersey, most people who have visited Patchwork, they have to speak to you first, or they've spoken to you, but they don't know that like you have like really put in the work and put in the time here for sure. Mm-hmm. You were part of the Patchwork family for life. So I want to know just like how did you even land at Patchwork before we get into like the background of who you are and like where you came from?
Okay. So yeah, again, I'm from Jersey, born and raised. And, long story short, I always had an interest in the music industry, the arts, anything creative I was like a big fan of. And so I always knew that's what I wanted to pursue. I was always career-oriented. I've been working since I was 15 years old.
What was your first job?
At a grocery store. And I think that lasted like 2 weeks because I was like, I'm not doing this. But so I started at a grocery store. And, I haven't never not worked since I was 15, maybe had like 3 months break, transition. So going into college, I went to University of Maryland. I wanted to be in a creative field, but I felt like I had no talents. So I said, what can I do? So I figured business, you can do anything that you want to do in business. So I went to school for business with a marketing concentration. While I was there, I did a few internships that were career-related. Mm-hmm. I did an internship with Cornerstone Promotions. I did an internship with Universal Music, video distribution in DC. And the highlight of my time was actually an internship at MTV in New York while I was in school in Maryland.
Oh, while you were in school?
Yeah, while I was in school. How'd you do that? I did a little ditty thing. So my parents were in Jersey at the time. Mm-hmm. And so I had a full-time schedule. So I worked out my class schedule where I could go to class 3 days a week. Then I would commute from Maryland, take a bus from Maryland to Jersey to stay at my parents' house. Then I would commute in the morning from Jersey to New York, Monday and Tuesday, do that internship. And then Tuesday, go back to Maryland and then just do that for, 3 to 4 months.
Wow.
In rotation, yeah.
And what would you say you learned during the experience or those times when you were interning while in school?
Just that like nobody could tell me nothing, that, if you really want something, you're going to make it happen. And, like I said, I was always career oriented. So I had an opportunity to intern with them before, and I had to turn that down because I accepted another internship. So they actually reached out to me the following time while I was in school previously. Yeah. And so I said, there's no way I'm turning down MTV twice. I got to make this happen.
Wow.
And so I pulled it together and made it happen.
That's dope.
Yeah. And after that, I got the internship at Universal Music, and they wanted me to stay there. But I said, I can't really. My parents moved. I was done with school. So I had to move to Atlanta.
Because your parents moved to Atlanta? My
parents moved to Atlanta from Jersey after I graduated. So at that time, I didn't have any money. I couldn't accept to stay at that position. So I moved to Atlanta. And in my mind, New York was where the music industry was. Right. It was like, I want to be in New York. Right. But I didn't have no choice, and I had no money. I'm fresh out of school. Mm-hmm. So at that time, I was in Atlanta and I thought my life was over.
That was so crazy, like how similar our stories are. Because
Yeah.
I felt the same way. I'm like, I want to go to New York. Period.
Right.
There's no other way.
Exactly.
And growing up, going to college in DC
Mm-hmm.
and DMV, so we share that alike.
Right.
And then having to move to Atlanta.
Right, exactly.
Even though I'm from here, so
Right.
it's like, why you didn't want to go home? But you just don't see. But then, so you got to Atlanta and you saw what was going on.
Yeah, not right away.
Mm-hmm.
So I was applying for. Well, what I did initially, I would apply 2 jobs in New York.
Mm-hmm.
And I would still have my Jersey address. So I was hoping I could find something in New York.
Gotcha.
But they would call me out for interviews, and I would be flying out that next day. And it was becoming too much money. So I told myself I got to find something in Atlanta. So I was just steadily looking for, like, what music opportunities are in Atlanta, what arts opportunities. I couldn't find anything. So I had to get up off my butt, get a job. So I was working at the mall. I was doing regular jobs that I felt like I shouldn't be doing, having just graduated. Mm-hmm. And, my parents were just like, well, you just need money. I said, no, I don't need money. I know what I want to do.
Right.
And I would constantly look for stuff in the industry, no matter what.
So what types of jobs were you, like, looking for?
Anything that had to do with business, anything that had to do with the arts, anything that had to do with music.
Gotcha.
I was not going to do any retail.
Right.
I was not going to do this, that. You know what I mean? I said, I have a plan.
Right.
I'm going to go for it. And so throughout all that time, I did a couple regular jobs. I did a couple more internships while in Atlanta. And I landed a job at the Woodruff Art Center. Mm-hmm. And I was there for 2 years. While I was there, I just started feeling unhappy. And I knew this is not what I want to do. I wasn't mentally fulfilled. I feel like I wasn't growing, learning anything.
What were you doing while you were at the Woodruff Art Center?
I was a program coordinator for schools, so placing educational programs in schools for different like clowns and tap dancers. They would perform for students at schools. Dope. Yeah.
But not really, because you were like, I don't really
Not really.
I'm
just like in the office, like calling people and coordinating.
Got it.
So in like a year into that, I just felt completely unhappy and dissatisfied. So I said, let me take one more chance to find an internship, because that's the only way that you're going to make it into the music industry is through an internship. And I knew internships are unpaid. And right now I have a steady job. I'm kind of between a rock and a hard place. So I told myself, I will find something and I will make it work, and this will be the last thing that I'm going to do. So I think I found a listing for an internship on Craigslist for patchwork.
Craigslist?
So you know how old that is. This
Craigslist.
Is 12 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
You can find anything on Craigslist.
Yeah, and I'm not from Atlanta, so I'm not familiar with patchwork.
Right.
I'm just literally sending resumes everywhere. So I sent resumes to a ton of places. But I got the call back to become a marketing intern. And so that was the beginning of it all.
So at the time when you became a marketing intern, were you finding the internship on Craigslist? You apply, they call you back. Now what? Like, so are you, because I mean, obviously the marketing internship has changed a lot since you were interning, since the beginning, you know what I mean? Not the beginning, but like since part of the beginning, really. How often were you here? What type of time were you putting in? Yeah. Because, I mean, obviously, as the studio manager, you have like a lot more responsibility than you did as an intern. Mm-hmm. But we know, being here and working here, understanding that, like, to get that sort of responsibility, Kurt and Mike have to trust you, you know what I mean? Like, in order to feel like and you've been in a management position for how long?
Here, I don't know exactly, because it was more transitional. It wasn't just you're hired one day. But I would say like 4-ish years, maybe. I don't know.
4-ish years?
Maybe longer, 5-ish. I don't know.
Really?
I don't know an exact number. And like I said, it was transitional. There was never a day that they just said, you're hired.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Well, regardless, I feel you've been at Patchwork for what? 12 years.
Going on. 12 plus, yeah.
Yeah, so 12 plus years, and that's just like a lot of time invested. What sort of things or how much time were you putting in initially as an intern?
Well, again, I was still at the Woodruff Art Center, so I was a year into there, and so at the 2-year mark, I transitioned out of Woodruff Art Center. That was what was paying my bills at the time.
Right.
So I had an apartment, I had stuff to, bills, whatever to pay for.
Right.
And when I left there, I only had patchwork, and it was an unpaid internship, so I was making no money.
So what did you do did you move out of the apartment?
No, I was in a 1-bedroom apartment. I went back to Craigslist, found me a roommate.
Oh, true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hustled, made a way.
And what sort of, because I mean, not to cut you off, but like we know there's a hustle, you know what I mean? So what sort of things were you doing in the meantime and in between time to try to like get yourself in a position to at least
probably just
survive?
Other little jobs, nothing like illegal or anything, you know what I mean? But just finding little opportunities. Yeah, I can't recall exactly, but
I mean, because my hustle when I was here, because I mean, I'm probably the only person that did not intern for patchwork and landed a job.
Yeah.
Shout out to Tiffany, shout out to Curtis. But my hustle was like I was blogging, and like everybody that came through here was an independent artist. So like I would just be like, okay, you can pay me $20 for this post, and like I'll post it or whatever. And that was like my little hustle.
I did do photography, so that was one thing. People were paying me to do that.
True. But, and you do graphics, you do a number of, like little odd things. Which kind of landed you to doing some building out your own brand with Toya in My Pocket, which we'll talk about later. So, okay. Tell me when you got to patchwork, was it just like love at first sight? Like, what you obviously stayed. So was it just like, this is cool, this is a cool job?
I think, in the beginning, I was really just like street team. So I wasn't even in the building.
Oh, okay.
But I had that hunger and that passion. So anything, if I was around the music industry, if I was around the people, I think that was just all I needed.
Right.
Not even to be in the building. So we were out like passing out flyers, going to events. I just like the team
aspect of it.
Yeah, the team aspect. My co-interns, Curvins at the time, he's OG, but he was over the marketing program. So we kind of formed like a really brotherly, sisterly relationship. So I think all of that helped. So I did that for 6 months, and then after that, he said, okay, we want you to come inside and kind of do more marketing stuff inside the building. And then, so at that point...
After 6 months?
After 6 months,
wow.
Working for free.
Yeah.
And then I did that, doing more like email blasts and newsletters, more administrative stuff in regards to marketing. I did that for another 6 months unpaid. And then that's when I left the job at the Woodruff Art Center. So it was a short period where I was unemployed with a paying job. And there was a position that had opened at the front desk. And, just talking to Curvins at that time, I was like, I'm struggling here. I would love to get paid. And, he's like, yeah, I understand. But the opportunity is not here at that moment.
Right.
So I'm just like, okay, but I'm sticking it out,
Right.
And a position had opened at the front desk. I remember I think he gave it to somebody else. And I was like, why would you do that? I want this. But I don't remember, for whatever reason, they didn't last at the front desk. And then so that's when I got the opportunity to work at the front desk. Wow. And so that was my first paid position here a year after I had interned. And it was making very minimal money.
Of course.
You can't disclose. But very minimal money, very little hours. I think it might have been like 4 to 8 hours a week, which is nothing.
Oh, a week?
A week, yeah.
Oh, no.
Because at that time, we had somebody staffed at the front and the back desk. Now we only have somebody at the front.
Right.
So it was, the shifts were way more varied, spread out. And so again, it was just a struggle in the beginning. But I think the way that I advanced was, like I said, at that time, we maybe had 10 people on it, in a week working their shifts, 4-hour little shifts. And I remember everybody would be like, oh, can you work for me? Can you work for me? Can you work for me? And I would say, yeah, yeah, yeah. And I started to notice that everybody was asking me to cover their shift. And so I said, okay, in my head, nobody wants to work. I want to work.
Right.
So I sent out an email to everybody at the front desk, saying anybody who does not want to work, I will work your shift for you. Hit me up. And I was working more covering everybody else's shifts than I was supposed to be working. They had a change to ownership.
So while you were here, you were here under
Bob Whitfield. Yeah,
okay.
He was owning the studio at the time. Curtis was managing it. Mike was engineering.
Got you.
So there was a change to ownership, and they had to switch up the structure of the business.
Mm-hmm.
And so they had to let some people go. And I thought I was, at that time they had even cut my hours back more, even though I was picking up the shifts. And so Curtis will tell this story to everybody. He's like, I came to him crying one day, like, I can't lose this job, da-da-da-da-da. And, he assured me that I was good and just be patient and this and that. And so sure enough, that's what I did. I was patient. And, when they came back with the new schedule, I was like a full-time employee at that time.
You was probably like, shouting. Yes,
Yeah.
That's beautiful. So how would you say that internship and just like being patient in general throughout that time ultimately prepared you to be where you are now, and to just have the experience that you have now dealing with people from like, you know what it takes to manage other employees, the engineers here, just having like multiple conversations, like you do a lot.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to just detail all of your responsibilities. Yeah. But how would you say that internship and the time in between prepared you for that, if it did?
I think I'm more of a reserved person, so I sit back and watch. I watch everything. I observe everything. And not only with the internship at Patchwork, but with my previous internships, I just absorbed information. So working at the label, I saw that side of things. Working at MTV, I saw that side of things. I saw how they upload programs to the computer to be played online. You know what I mean? So I learned all these different aspects of things. And here I learned how to stock vending machines. I learned, what goes on at the front desk. I just absorbed information without necessarily being in charge of it. And I think that's what helps, because once you know how to, you can't be a boss or a leader without knowing how to do stuff yourself. And I was duplicating CDs. I was, like I said, stocking the vending machines. I was sending out email blasts. Like, I literally learned how to do everything except engineer. And so I think as time passed, Curtis was managing the office, and, he would have assistants or some of the females at the front desk coming into the office and assist him. And I remember in my head, I was like, I never want to be that person. I was like, that's so intimidating. That's so scary. I would hear him chewing out people. And I said, I don't want to be that. I'm comfortable here at the front desk, And, but I would still just learn and watch. And I think as I watched other people go in and out, in and out, in and out, and, eventually you just got to look at somebody and say, okay, well, this person's still here.
Right.
They know how to do this.
Right.
They know how to do that. Let me give them an opportunity, And I think it kind of went like that. So he would say, well, just come and do this one little thing for me.
Like what?
Like just simple things, like call this person back and tell them to do this, or just send out this one little invoice. You know what I mean? It wasn't
gradual. It was gradual.
Yeah, it was very gradual.
So, okay, the work ethic seems to be a really big, strong part of your story, your journey, right? You from working working since you were 15 up until now, always being consistent and a hard worker. where do you think you learned that work ethic from? Like, is that something that your parents, I guess I know your background personally, but to tell people, is that something that your parents instilled in you, or is it just something that was innate for you?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I grew up in a stable household with my father, he's Jamaican, so I'm half Jamaican, so that's...
Yeah, I didn't want to be like, you Jamaican, Caribbean families are very hardworking.
Yeah, he's the disciplinarian, so he definitely is the one who instilled education, hard work, doing the right thing in myself and my sister. So I definitely get that from him. And, just being, I say from my mother, just being like a compassionate person, being a real person. They both were musically inclined. So I think I got that passion from them. But
your mom plays piano.
Yeah, she's classically trained in piano.
Yeah.
And my father, he's a reggae artist.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that part.
Yeah. Me and my sister, we used to package up vinyl for him.
That's dope.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I think my upbringing definitely influenced me.
For sure.
Yeah.
And so let me ask you, how have you learned or discovered more about yourself through working here? Because I know for me, I was like, whoa, like just fresh out of college, a similar story, but different paths, of course. And I learned so much about like what I could take, what I could handle, what I couldn't handle, what I didn't like, those sorts of things. So I'm curious to know, like, how have you learned and discovered a lot about yourself, especially in leading other people too, transitioning from a role of like kind of just being the observant one, the wallflower, to having to, state your opinion and plan things and like do certain things.
I mean, I've definitely learned a lot. Let me see. I would just say about myself, dealing with people is a challenge. I would say I had to learn how to be patient. I don't know.
That's true. Those are the things that I was somewhat seeking from you. Like, definitely being patient with people. And then talk about working in a studio environment, because a lot of people don't really know what goes on in these walls. Like, they don't even know the studio is even right here, So to come in and to see the plaques on the wall, it's a lot of pros and there are some cons. So I want to know from your experience and just from your lens more about working in a studio environment, what those pros and cons could be.
Definitely the pros, I would say, are just, it's a very familial vibe here. So the people in one aspect is a good thing. Like, everybody's like your friends, everybody's you're cool with. It's very laid back. You feel comfortable. That's one thing that I could say, like, this is the one place that has made me feel so comfortable in my skin, where I probably wasn't that, 12 years ago. So this is that kind of place that makes you feel that way. And yeah, I mean, that's the biggest advantage to me, is it just really feels like a family. If you have issues, I've had issues in the past where I can talk to Curtis and it doesn't feel like he doesn't care. Like, he genuinely cares. At the same time, the cons can be the people too, because with any family, you have conflict, you have dysfunction, you have disagreements, arguments, people who might get on your nerves every now and then. Yeah, so I mean, and that's internally, and then you also bring in all these other characters, the clients. They may be displeased, they may have attitudes, they may not vibe with you, you may not vibe with them, but it's a business. At the end of the day, you always have to be professional. You have to know how to talk to people, but still, be firm in what you're trying to communicate.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think it's a fine line between being like a doormat and being just, not a pushover.
Right.
Or, just being strong in your convictions.
Facts. So talk to the people about what your responsibilities are today. Like, what are you responsible for as a studio manager at Patrick Recording Studios?
Okay, so today, pretty much, my main role is just booking sessions, customer service, so dealing with any issues that the clients may have, billing sessions, making sure we receive payments. I don't do as much marketing as I did back then, so I was definitely more involved in marketing prior years, and now it's just administrative roles, payroll, stuff like that.
Gotcha. So you literally trained me, and we worked quite closely together for about 2 years, or a little less than 2 years. How would you say you've been able to mentor and like foster relationships with, people through that, not necessarily work, well, I guess, yeah, work under you, with the employees over time as well. So like engineers, the Jasmines, all of the people who've come after, or after you.
Yeah. I mean, I could just say, like, you look at somebody and you see yourself in them, so you can't knock a person or not understand where they're coming from. So I think if anybody walks in this building, I look at them and be like, I know the struggle. I know where you are. Let me give you some advice, or let me give you some tools that will help you, Yeah,
because it's been plenty of time. Yeah. It's been plenty of time where I feel like I was just like over it or whatever, and I'll just come and sit down with you and just like, you didn't even really have to say anything. Yeah. You just like, I know.
Yeah, it's funny because I was just talking to Luke, about how so many people come to me like, yeah, we had this conversation. I'm like, I don't remember it. I'm like, because I talk to so many people, and, at this point, sometimes I'm a robot. Like, sometimes I feel bad because I can't, like, have this conversation with everybody and just dealing with the clients. Like, that's one thing. It can be overwhelming because I put a sign up on the door one time, like, this is a psychiatrist's office, because people bring their issues to you, their complaints, their worries. And, me, I have like a good heart. So I want to hear everybody. I want to help everybody, but it's just not possible. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully I didn't overwhelm you too much. No. But we've definitely had our conversations, and we still do. But I agree with you about Patchwork being such a familial environment, because like even when I decided to leave, like I always was able to come back. Like anytime I ring that bell, I know somebody will answer when I say it's Sammy. Yeah. So I appreciate that from y'all. So I'm sure you've seen some pretty wild things, and have stories for days. Not asking you to share those stories, but I want to know how you managed continuously being somewhat of a wallflower in this environment. I always ask the engineers that sit down this similar question, but for you, dealing directly with the client, you have, and we both have had experiences with some of our favorite artists. When you see and hear things all the time in the studio, how have you managed to protect that, like the client's info, and I guess de-stress, be relieved from these things? Yeah. Obviously, you have everybody here, but how have you managed over time to just kind of remain a wallflower and not? Like, I know for me it was difficult because, like, I blogged. So it was like, I could really be Wendy Williams out here if I wanted to, but I'm not going to do that just because that's just not how it is here. Yeah. Like, we know who comes in and out of the studio, and that's just, like, our business. Like a family. Yeah, your mom be like, anything that happens in this house stays in this house. Yeah. How have you managed to just take in that information and just kind of, like, keep it with you? Or have you?
Well, I'll go back to one of your old questions. You said, what did I learn about myself? And that's one thing, like, well, I've always been myself. So that's nothing that I've had to learn or change. You just have to come in here and be genuine. But what I did learn, though, is that, I do have a breaking point. And, I can't just work. And there is a balance in life. And that's something that I'm really focused on right now. So, previously I would just work, deal with people, never take a vacation. And,
now you
drive
out here
myself
traveling.
Crazy. Yeah, now I'm out here traveling. So, dealing with these people, they're not, I mean, they're celebrities. Everybody knows them, but they're humans. You know, they're just like yourself. So me dealing with these people, I don't really look up to our clients necessarily. So it's not something where I'm going to just create a dramatic situation around them for no reason, like
because they're so and so.
Yeah, if I'm calm around you, I'm gonna be calm around them. You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, like stressing out over little things is not that important as your own happiness and your own sanity. If that makes sense, I'm trying to like connect that whole everything together.
I agree.
So so what I do now is, you have to find a way to calm yourself down in order to deal with all the stresses of working. And at one point I was just stressed out and I just said, I gotta go. And I went somewhere, I think to like Savannah. And I felt so good after coming back, so like refreshed. Mm-hmm. And it makes you work better. Mm-hmm. And then I went to somewhere else after that. I said, wow, I feel really good again. Yeah. And so that's how I started the habit of traveling, and I for 1 year, I made a commitment to travel once a month every year. Mm-hmm. And that really just changes your whole mindset. You really just, I don't know, at that point, you start focusing on yourself instead of everybody else. And I think really just knowing who you are, focusing on your happiness, your peace of mind, that's really what helps you deal with other people in a way.
No, definitely. Yeah. I agree. I feel like that in combination with, I don't know, you just can't be confined in four walls for a period of time. Like, imagine being in that office every single day. So I think around the time, well, maybe before I got here, you made that commitment. Mm-hmm. Or maybe when I got here, you like made the commitment, like, I'm consciously going to travel once a month. Mm-hmm. And I've had the privilege of traveling with you and a few of our other. San Francisco was a trip. Well, you kind of answered like how you came to the point of realization that you needed to travel. Mm-hmm. But also, like, do you find that you're more inspired when you go out, and like, do you feel like at the least bit creative after you've come back from travels, or what?
I don't know if I feel like inspired or creative, but I think I'm definitely more motivated. Like I said, I'm just refreshed. So I can come back and be in a more positive spirit, smile at a client instead of wanting to get angry. instead
of just giving the self face.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's important, but I don't know that I necessarily feel more creative or anything.
So there was never a moment where you felt like starstruck if a client came through, like, was there a point where it was like, I'm not starstruck anymore, or you never just like were phased?
I mean, just in general, I've never been too starstruck. Like I said, they're just humans. I'm in my heart, I'm like a very, very genuine person. So I like a lot of stuff does not impress me at all.
Right. We know. Toya.
Yeah. So I mean, on occasion, I think John Legend, he was the first celebrity I met, and that's when I was interning. So, at that time I was like, oh, he spoke to me. Right. And sometimes if it's a big celebrity and I'm not aware that they're coming and they just pop up and I'm like, oh, that was so-and-so. But, that excitement dies down like after 2 minutes. So, yeah.
Dang.
But, at the same time, I think that's another reason why I lasted here so long.
Yeah.
Because I don't do music. Half the time I don't care what you do. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I'm strictly here for the business. Like, that was my passion from the jump. My passion was never doing music. My passion was never really making connections. It was never no ulterior motives. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
I agree. So let me ask you, aside from the things that you've already mentioned, why are certain traits important to have in this sort of environment? I.e., you mentioned patience before being something you learned over time. Mm-hmm. But which traits would you identify, and why are those traits important?
I think, if I think of tangible traits, I think the biggest thing, or my biggest asset, is organization. Like, it's on a business end, you have all this information coming in. If you can't organize your dates and organize these clients and put some folders together and say, this person has this stuff, like organization is a key trait in my opinion, on a tangible level. And then intangible, I would just say, I don't know. I mean, the patience, the understanding people, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Why are they coming into this building? For instance, I receive a ton of calls a day, the same question 100 times a day. Mm-hmm. And, sometimes in my head, I'm like, why don't they know this? I just told you 100 times. And then I have to correct myself. Like, no, I didn't tell you 100 times. I told 100 people one time.
Right.
So I have to understand that people are genuinely don't know this stuff. They're not just stupid for no reason, Yeah. And I have to tell myself, like, you didn't know who an engineer was at one time. You didn't know the difference between an engineer and a producer.
Right.
So make sure you understand that this is where that client is coming from.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, just also Patchwork itself being like a hub for educating or priding ourselves on educating mm-hmm. and helping the independent artists, because we know, like you said, a lot of times, and even artists signed to a label, like they don't know all the things. They just want to focus on the music.
Right.
So we pride ourselves on educating, mm-hmm. and I guess like even with some of the services that you're responsible for assisting with, like the admin services we provide, mm-hmm. uploading stuff to BDS, all those things, I'm sure you get 1,000 questions about as well. Mm-hmm. Anyways, why? Let me ask this question. I always like to ask this question to people on the podcast. But why do you think you in particular are the right person for the job? Yeah, you got to toot your horn a little bit.
I mean, I don't know. I just feel like I'm a genuine person. You know what I mean? When I'm not gonna give you any like fluff. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna boost your ego, but I'm not gonna shoot you down at the same time. Like I try to be as genuine as possible mm-hmm. while still being professional, and I think I know how to do both of those things. Because you can't just be completely like, you suck. You know what I mean? You still have to maintain a level of professionalism. Mm-hmm. And I think I just know that good balance. And again, I don't have any ulterior motives, you know.
You're not trying to sign artists.
I'm not trying to sign artists, you know. So I think that's why.
So tell us about Toya in My Pocket. Mm-hmm. What is that? Why did you decide to start this business? It's essentially a business.
Yeah.
Where I know you're going to assist or helping people with like services that they probably either don't feel like doing or can't do. Mm-hmm. So tell us about Toya in My Pocket and then like why you decided to do it.
Well, I've always been the type of person who I don't want to just be feel like I'm not growing mm-hmm. and I'm not learning. And you know, I've been at Patchwork, like we said before, like 12 years plus, and at this point, I can do a lot of things with my eyes closed here. And
like you said, a robot.
A robot.
That's an inside joke for those that are listening because Toya oftentimes is just like going through the motions because you're accustomed to doing it.
And like I said, as part of that work-life balance, you know, I love it at Patchwork, but sometimes you still just want to grow and advance and do something that fulfills you. Mm-hmm. And so I think I was reaching that point where I'm like, okay, I'm here. I got this down packed. Now what can I do to make myself feel better? Or what can I do for me? Mm-hmm. And what am I good at? What can I make more money off of? And I just was brainstorming like, you know, I'm really good at administrative stuff. And a lot of people ask me for stuff. And I know, you know, there's a lot of business people I meet. They don't have the time to just do those little tedious tasks. Like they may want to research a list of nightclubs in the city of Atlanta. and they're just too busy to do that. So it's something that's actually not easy, but it's just tedious.
Right. And
so I figure I could come in and fill that void again because I have those organization skills. I've been doing Excel sheets for the longest,
right.
like, and it's just something to help, business people
Dope.
out.
And I was going to ask you about how you balance life, or I know it's a newer thing for you to like balance your personal life and work life. Because how long are you here? You're here in the morning at like 10?
Yeah, it's supposed to be 12 hours a day. So like 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., 5 days a week, so 60 hours a week. Yeah, so yeah, so my weekdays are pretty much filled up. And then so weekends I just either dedicate, me time, friend time, family time during the weekends. And, I'm trying to figure out a way to make some extra bread in between all of that as well.
Right.
But yeah.
Sounds tedious. But I mean, also in studio life in general, this is a 24-hour, 7 days a week business. Yeah. And people don't realize that somebody has to be here. Somebody has to, look after the client and the engineer and the other employees here to make sure everything is cool. So somebody has to do that, and we appreciate you for being here today.
It's a team effort. Everybody here pulls their own weight.
It is. Yeah. And I guess my other question would be like, during the times of like, what sort of things do you feel like you have to do on a day-to-day to like manage and help run a team?
Day-to-day, I think just you said to help manage and run a team.
Like, I know you work closely with Jazz, and I'm sure you are constantly communicating with the engineers and things like that. So what sort of things day to day are you running into to where you have to, outside of communicating with the client, you're communicating internally? Right.
I think the key thing is communication, like you said, talking to people. We're all grown here, in my opinion. So I feel like you give the tools to the people. You have to tell them what you expect from them up front, how to get this accomplished up front. Set all those standards up front. And then from there, in my opinion, it's on them to fulfill those expectations and fulfill the job.
Absolutely.
So I'm not the babysitter type. You know what I mean? You won't see me yelling at nobody. You won't see me hovering over you, watching what you're doing. Micromanaging. Yeah, I'm completely against that. But I think once you tell somebody how to do something once, they should know from there. Let them make a couple mistakes. But if you see them continuing to make those same mistakes, I feel like sooner or later they're going to hang themselves. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But I think just that initial level of communication, also not treating anybody as less than you. That's one thing that I strongly believe in and strongly adhere to. Like, I don't even like to call myself a manager. I will tell anybody I'm not really a manager. I book sessions, because we're all on the same level, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I never felt like you were like, that's why I said earlier in our conversation, like, I didn't necessarily feel like you were above me, but you definitely deserve not only the title, but just like, you've been here, you put in your time, and I definitely think that, you're deserving of that position. But I never felt like I really felt like we were coworkers. Like, it was very, I did my job, you did your job, we worked together. So I appreciate that as well. So let's talk about it. You're a woman. You're one of the few women that work here. It's a very, the music industry in general is a very male-dominated industry. A lot of the clients that we have are males. My question is, how has it been being a woman on a day-to-day here from, trying to remain professional, being hit on, like all the different things that you go through just as a woman in this environment?
Yeah. I mean, and again, one thing I learned about myself, to go back to the old question, is I don't want to deal with anybody in the music industry at all.
Same.
But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a challenge. And,
But then my question to that piece, and I know we're almost running out of time, but how else are you supposed to meet a man? Like,
exactly.
I'm here.
Well, I'm still struggling. You see, I'm single, so I don't know. I can't answer that question.
Me either. It's cool.
But I mean, it's like a fine line, because we were actually having this conversation the other day. Because as a woman, you're gonna get hit on constantly.
Anywhere.
But there is a fine line where you have to figure out, okay, at what point are they crossing the line? You know what I mean? Some things you can just ignore, and you have to, because if you just are hypersensitive to everything, you're not gonna survive. You know what I mean? So you kind of have to have a thick skin. You have to know how to brush things off, and again, know what your purpose is. You know, you're not here to mix and mingle with the clients and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And you got to read through their BS and see them for what they're really interested in. Because I've done that before, where I've entertained somebody, and in the long run, you see they're only with you for this, for that, and nothing that you really
I just tweeted the other day, like, it's almost impossible to date in Atlanta if you work in media or music, because you think you dating somebody who got a 9-to-5 and they really are an artist the whole time. They're like, yo, can you put me on?
Exactly.
No, I can't put you on. Literally.
Yes.
So I do feel you on that. So one of my last questions, how are you different from when you first started out as an intern till now as, like, Toya 12 plus years later at Patchwork? Like, how do you, even if you're not different, I'm not saying like you as a person, but like just how have you grown, and what are some of the biggest lessons you've learned just over your tenure throughout this career? And
I always tell people, like, I don't grow out, I just grow up. You know what I mean? So I'm a loyal person, so you're not gonna see me switching places, doing this and that, but you do change. You have to change, and this is not to say that it's a bad thing, but I think coming in, my drive and my passion was way more strong than it is now. But that's only because I didn't understand, and I was so eager to learn. And now that I've learned so much, I think what has changed is that I see the industry, and I see people for what they really are and who they really are, and my priorities in my head are different. You know what I mean? I think back then I was thinking, I can help build an artist who's just as passionate about music as I am, and that it was going to be some magical thing, creation, and we're just going to make beautiful music and videos and this and that. And now I see that people are passionate, but they're passionate about different things. They're passionate about money. They're passionate about how many followers and likes they get on Instagram. You know what I mean? And I think that's the thing that I learned, that it's not all that it appears to be from the outside, that it is on the inside. And you really just have to, take it for what it is. And I don't know.
So where are we going next?
On a trip?
Yeah.
Because I know my whole summer's filled up. Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I got
you. We booked? Okay.
And you're welcome to come anywhere, but we got Jamaica,
This is Toya's World Tour.
Yeah, we got Hilton Head, we got Alaska, we got
Mexico,
and I think another island, like Cayman Islands.
Exciting. Yeah. That's so exciting. I love that you continue to, pour into your other passions, i.e. traveling and, the videos and stuff you kind of just do on the side just for yourself to document those times. Because I know you started doing, or you were doing photography and video before. So I love that you're still implementing those passions and stay passionate, stay hungry for, life. That's an important thing, or you do get caught up in work and it's not fun.
It's not, no. And it's not
telling you that.
Either,
yeah, it's definitely not healthy. Well, I wish you much success in the future.
You.
I know, I see you every other day, so it's not like I'm not going to see you soon.
Yeah.
But tell them where they can find you and get in touch with you if they need anything.
On Instagram. Speaking of Instagram.
Right. Even though we hate Instagram.
Yeah, Toya, Toya _ELISE, Toya Elise.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, and thank you for sitting down with me. I know this was
tough.
Thank you,
Sammy. I love Sammy.
I love you too, Toya.
Yeah.
I know this was difficult, but you did it effortlessly. So I'm like, maybe we can have you back.
All right. Maybe. I don't know.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Once in a lifetime thing. It's probably be the last interview Toya ever does. We appreciate you as always. And thank you for just being like a really essential person here at the studio. I feel like when I introduced you, I didn't mention that she actually is the studio manager here at Patchwork Recording Studio. So just to make that very clear, if you need anything, that's probably the first person you're going to talk to. Yep. And as always, if you want to follow us on Instagram, we are at IDM Podcast on social media, as well as myself at Sammy Approved. And I thank y'all for listening, as always. Thank you. Sonically superior.